Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Welcome to the Sex Podcast with your host, Andra, with a topic about sex. It's from the point of view of an older woman. Our topic today for our first segment is intimacy. Everybody puts intimacy and sex together synonymously, where intimacy is the closeness between people in that relationship. You can build intimacy up over time, and it continues to build the deeper and closer you become to your partner. And there are different forms of intimacy that can be explored, and you're working on that you don't even realize that you're doing. Like for first, we have emotional intimacy. Obviously, it's working on your emotions. It allows you to tell your partner like those personal things about you that you might necessarily share with strangers or sometimes even family members. It's a form of letting down your guard in order to let that person get that much closer to you. We have intellectual intimacy, and this is getting involved with your partner on a mind level, whereas intelligence, you're sitting there and you're having a deep thought conversation. It could be about politics. It could be what's in the news today, or learning something from your partner and him or her learning from you, something that you know on an intellectual, level. It builds as you exchange ideas. And also builds during like meaningful conversation. So every time you have a deep thought conversation and in this on an intellectual level with your partner, you're actually building your level of intimacy. And it also is another form of sparking a connection, because if most people like to be on the same intellectual level as their partner. So this is that spark. And if you enjoy the conversation, that conversation grows more and more, and so does your intimacy with that partner. And, we're doing this when we meet people. There's physical. Now, we all know about the physical intimacy, that touch and closeness between bodies, the holding hands, the cuddling, the kissing, and obviously the sex. But a big deep hug, bear hug. We all know those things. And the more we do that, the more we're building that physical intimacy. Experimental intimacy. Pretty interesting. You're spending quality time with that partner, and you're trying different things out with this person. And what I mean by this, you are building common interests and activities And it's not just the experimenting in bed. It's more of the physical outside activity, how you interact. And if you want to put it in simple terms, the courtship, that you're building that bond, that experimental intimacy, because you go out and say it's just to go to antique shops or go to, let's raid the yard sales, or go for a long ride, playing sports together, or just doing activities together, going to see a game together. You're building that experimental intimacy. It's the outside part of the experimental. It's not the sexual part. And another one is the spiritual. A lot of people have beliefs that they want to share be compatible with their partner, but it varies from person to person. It could be that belief in something beyond, the physical realm of existence. It mimics sharing common values. So it's like having a partner that also believes in that higher power, or in human souls, as you do. Then there's a trust intimacy. Being able to be trustworthy to your partner, as your partner can become trustworthy to you, where you are able to open up and feel closer. You're letting down your guard and allowing that person in because you trust them. And that goes in steps. Some people actually go in and give everything, and you really have to your partner has to earn the right to stay within your heart and remain trustworthy to you. And other people, it's the opposite. You literally have to build up to get the all trustworthy level. Acceptance, intimacy, being able to, just accept your partner for who they are, quirks and differences. And we are all going to have one thing, there is compatibility, but we are still individuals, and we each have something that we hold that make us that person. So accepting your partner with everything for who they are it grows and builds your intimacy. Honesty. We all know about honesty, being honest with our partner. Now, honesty and intimacy feed each other. It's being able to tell your partner anything. I mean, when partners get really, really comfortable, and this is probably the funniest example, you'll find it where you can go to the bathroom and your partner can come into the bathroom while you're in there and you're just still talking. One's sitting on the toilet and the other one's trying to get themselves together for work. It's just the funniest thing in the world, but it is being open and allowing yourself to let that person, just being honest. This is what I look like in the morning. I don't look this good when I get up. But intimacy and honesty it goes hand in hand. You can't get any closer with intimacy. You have all of these other intimacies, but that honesty just ties it all together. Feeling safe, safety, intimacy. Because you're being honest, you have all this trust, and you're accepting your partner. You're able to share your deepest, truest self with another person. And by doing this, you're putting yourself into a vulnerable position. But this is where the intimacy kicks in, and every form of it is because you've built up to that level of allowing, that level of safety to allow your partner in. Compassion, intimacy. It's feeling cared about in a real deep manner. Like you have your BFF, your best friend, will be there for you if in your good and bad times. But there is that, being able to, with a partner, forgiveness and understanding. This can only exist with compassion between you and your partner. It can't exist without it. There's affection, intimacy, and we all know just showing that little bit of intimacy outwardly and in public is a true bond. Now, we are going to take a break here. And when we come back, we'll finish up with our levels of intimacy and continue on to something new.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the Sex Podcast with your host, Andra. The topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, in the last segment, we're giving forms of intimacy, and we left off with the last one. And a drum roll, please. Everybody should know what this one is, because it's like the glue that holds your relationship together for the most part. If you don't have it, your relationship will suffer. And that is communication. Communication is key to almost everything in life. Not only your sex life, your work life, your relationship. It's just everything. With no communication, you'll have difficulties in your relationship. Unless you like your, partner in that manner and they agree, that's another form of building your type of intimacy. I mean, we all communicate on different levels and not all verbal. So keep that in mind. And that completes all our forms of intimacy. And as promised, got a new topic. But see, I gotta still keep it connected. We just finished up with forms of intimacy. There's a book, it's called Hold Me Tight. And it's by Dr. Sue Johnson. Now, the book, she goes over 3 kinds of sex that we have. Now that we know about all our intimacy and levels of them that we can work on and build on, we need now to have good sex. And there's 3 kinds of sex according to Dr. Johnson. I mean, we are products of our environment. What we watch on TV molds our minds, especially watching media, which has become overwhelmed and actually run by sex. I think that it's gotten to the point where I don't think one thing can possibly be sold without sex being involved in that, or some form of portrayal or that underlining grab you, hold you in, and get your attention. I'm sure it's out there, but nowadays it's become very difficult. To us, and according to the book, good sex to us is instantaneous, totally mutual, cataclysmic, and is the best at the very beginning of any relationship that you go into with a partner. Because basically in the beginning, everybody feels it. It's like that honeymoon stage. It's where we're trying to impress our partners. We're putting on a good face, we're exploring, we're figuring out their quirks as they're figuring out ours. We're building our trust. We're building all of these forms of intimacy. No relationship is no different. We just do it in different ways. Now, what we feel good sex is different for every relationship, every situation, every couple. You don't have to be married. You could just be boyfriend, girlfriend, or same sex. Doesn't matter. Doesn't discriminate. It loves all relationships. We have a tendency to, as human beings alone, our eyes are the first thing we look at. Someone we're attracted to is, for the most part, in the majority of individuals, will go straight to the eyes, the physical attraction of that person we're attracted to. And we have a tendency to build our sex life or our sexual desires on that. And, that's not bad if that works for you. But if that's all that's in the relationship, danger, danger. So the first one she talks about is sealed off sex. And she explains this to be all about reducing sexual tension, achieving the big O. Well, we talked about that. And feeling good about your sexual prowess. We need to know, what makes us tick, basically. It's, how she further goes on, it's like the name of the game is sensation. The better, and performance. Or the God, I'm hot quoting, which is, we all feel that we are hot in our own little ways, and that's what makes us attractive to another person. So it's actually a good thing. It makes us who we are individually. Under the sealed off sex, is the one night stand. It is not initially looking at that person you're attracted to and saying, oh, I'm going to have a relationship with this person. It's, if it's the long-term relationship is really not what's going to work in this particular type of sex. And men seem to be much better at this than women, that sealed off sex and just having sex, because of the way their minds are wired and what sex means to them and what sex means to a woman is, it's separate. We're all trying to get to the same end, but we look at it a little differently. They, because men are wired where it's faster for them to move from arousal to orgasm. So this sealed off sex is much easier for them. It's not that easy for a woman. We get attached very easily from time to time. And it takes us more, we need to feel a little bit, or at least, initially see and or feel that there's, we can actually have sex with that person. So sealed off is more towards the one-night standers, works better with men as opposed to women. It's the physical attraction more than the emotional, the intimacy. I mean, even some guys will even call it, making love. You're not making love, you're having sex. Come on. Is that way you're going to make us feel better? You're not connected emotionally. There's nothing there. And it's generally, they don't call you the next day. Now, the second type of sex she talks about is soulless sex. Now, with soulless sex, there's probably going to be a problem, or even really getting comfortable in a relationship, and you're so comfortable in that relationship that it poses a wedge, and at that point you are trying to please your partner so much. You're looking for approval, you want reassurance, you'll take things a lot more harder if they've said to you, like, oh, tonight I'm really tired. You'll take that as, oh, very disappointing, you don't want to be with me. And then you're more likely to take that and continue in that thought pattern. So you will go with a lot of cuddling, a lot of touching, over intimacy, because you're really trying to get reassurance from your partner. Unfortunately, this type of sex, when you are too much trying to please or trying to get reassurance from your partner, the fantasy in the relationship, or the erotic side, will have a tendency to become lacking. We're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we will finish up with the third kind of sex, and then go on to talk about what is good sex. Good sex is? Question mark. So go get that cold drink and a snack. Get comfortable again, and I'll be back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Sex Podcast with your host, Andra, where the topic of sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Now, as promised, we're going to finish out with our last type of sex, which is synchrony sex. There's the word right there, synchrony. You're in sync with your partner. It's when emotional openness and responsiveness, tender touch, and erotic exploration all come together. You know, This sex is the most fulfilling, satisfying, and it connects you and your partner on a deeper level and heightens. It helps you to move on to like new and different things, or at least to be able to be open to exploring new things. You and your partner are on the same level, same sexual level. Let's pinpoint that. With this kind of sex, the safer you and your partner feel emotionally, the more you can communicate and express your needs clearer and more openly without the fear of being rejected. There is sexual coordination. You're able to sense and respond to how arousal shifts and peaks occur within your partner. There's no explanation. You just know what to do, and you're on that same level. You are in a very, very deep bond with your partner, and it feeds your senses. It's attractive, desirable, sexual, and this is how you see each other, because you're attracted as attractive, desirable sexual beings. And with that sex becomes more and more intense, and there's no worries. And you're willing to try different things. And you know that your partner will respond positively to that. So those were the 3 kinds of sex. Now on to our final topic for this segment. Good sex is ? Now, good sex means, you say, oh, I've had the best sex, or that was good sex. We all have different views on what good sex means to each one of us individually. So these are just like an overview. And, they break them down. First one is consent. Now, consent is very, very important, because if you are having sex without consent, obviously one of you is having more fun than the other. Just saying. So it's always nice, and it's always, always important to have a consensual sexual encounter, be it with a partner that you're already with, or someone you've just met and want to get to know. Second is enthusiasm. Big, big, big. This is probably one of the biggest, best parts about good sex. And it's all about both you and your partner willing to have sex, and you and your partner both being wanted by each other. So very, very important. You're not too excited, or being excited, shall I say, is not going to hold you back from having that sexual encounter. So that, very, very good. Connection. Connection is one of those things where if you look at someone, the connection was immediate between you and that person, or you and your partner, or you've been with your partner, you have this connection already. It doesn't have anything to do with the attraction. It just feels like your partner's mind is with yours, and you're not in 2 different places. You're on the same playing field, and you both want the same thing sexually, and there's that connection there, so you have a good reading on each other. Compatibility. Compatibility is pretty important. There might be, if there's a difference, or, there might be that difference where somebody has a different belief on sex, where one person, oh, I can't have sex until we're married, or my religious backgrounds, and I don't like to touch on religious backgrounds, but religion is very, very important, and people respect that. So you can never ever forget that. People are taught through that with regards to how sex is, or how sex should be. But overall compatibility, we all have different ideas, turn-ons, kinky behavior, even fetishes. So having compatibility with your partner helps to have a better sex encounter. Although I will say, that difference in thought patterns may also work, because with that compatibility, I'm tongue-tied for words today. Unlike me. Again, here's our big communication. I don't even have to explain that. You know what it is. It is the root of all things. Now, when we think of good sex, something to talk about. At least in our own minds, we have something to talk about, or something that we are going to back and be the next day thinking about and wanting to do again. And by that, you start to feel within yourself, wow, we really hit it off. Or with your partner, we're growing sexually, and we're on the same level. I don't have to explain things. So the sex is always good, and that's great, because that's what you want in a relationship. That's what you want in a partner. And being open to new experiences helps. These are little things that we have a tendency to forget about. People have a tendency to think that sex has to do with gymnastics, being able to be a contortionist to get into a position, or your partner has to, they have to see your body and it has to be perfect. No, everybody has their own idea and their own likes and dislikes with regards to what they're attracted to, what is a turn on, what is just going to make that sexual fantasy work. So when you're worrying about all these things, and some people, you have to have the orgasm simultaneously. No. It says, that's not good sex. It's a good goal in sex. And I know all of us have thought about it, or at least tried it and achieved it. But it's not the end all, because you're concentrating too much on that instead of enjoying yourself. Just that sex is that enjoyable act. So with that being said, let's end it on that note. And think all of these things over and run them around in your mind. Because we all want good sex. We have come to the end of the show. And as always, practice safe sex. If not for you, for your partner.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.